I'm having a creative resuscitation workshop because I'm dying. If I don't create something, I'm going to die. I really feel that. And so I'm going to have like 8 of us, including me, and we're just all going to do little, performance exercises and creativity exercises and create 3 to 5 minute pieces. Oh, Carol, I hope he can join us. I know she's going to want a special deal.
He's just into it for the money.
And that is the way we start our interview. We'll call this interview Creative Resuscitation.
Oh, God.
Today is Thursday, January 19th, 2017. I'm Mark Simon for the Silver Lake History Collective. Marco Larson is on camera. And today we're interviewing Carol Cetrone and John Fleck, both performing artists with lots of connections to each other and Silver Lake and the underground art scene in Silver Lake starting in the 80s. Carol is a dancer, choreographer, filmmaker, photographer, and John is an actor, a solo performance artist. So we'll start with Carol.
Oh, good.
A few preliminary questions.
Okay.
Carol, tell us where you were born, Carol.
Okay, I was born in Fresno, California. My mother was also born in Fresno.
Wow.
My dad came from New York, from the Bronx area.
What was he doing in Fresno?
Well, he moved to Fresno. A lot of Italians moved to Fresno from Italy and from the East Coast because the temperature and the terrain, a lot of people just thought that the Central Valley was similar to places in Italy. So, yeah, and all the immigrants in New York that were from Italy, that buzz was going along. So there was like this constant flow of Italians from Italy to New York to Fresno. And that's the same trajectory that my grandfather took. He came first to New York and then made the trip across country
to
Fresno and started his fig farm. He was a fig farmer, very successful for that time. He bought acres and acres of land. He had a farm. He had in addition to my mother, he had 4 other children. He had 3 girls and 2 boys altogether. And the boys were all involved in the farming business. My mother worked on the farm. I worked on the farm. Everybody worked on the farm. So that's basically how I was raised. My dad was not a farmer. He came from New York because some of his Goomba friends were in Fresno, so he followed that. And he was a milkman. And then he worked pouring concrete, doing concrete work. And then he became, he owned a gas station, and then he eventually opened a wrecking yard. So I grew up on a farm and in my dad's, auto wrecking yard. Worked for my dad as well.
And what did you do on the farm? What were your chores?
We picked figs, and we, basically, I was I didn't work there very long because we were going to school, and my mom didn't finish high school because she had to work on the farm all the time, so they wanted us to finish school. So we were just I worked on the picking figs, and there was a big sorting belt where the figs came down and you had to sort out the bad ones. So we did that for a while, and then they would box them up and they would dry them. They were mostly dried figs that they sold, so they would dry them in these trays in the sun, and we just did that kind of work.
And when did dance come into it? One of your biographies says that you after a long time, a lot of traditional dance training.
Right.
You moved out of that.
Right.
When did what was that traditional dance training like? And was it in Fresno?
Yes. My mother, I'm just eternally grateful because I know they didn't have any money, and she's still alive. She was very artistic. She was really great at drawing and painting, very lifelike drawings that she did. And so I think she always really appreciated the arts, even though she wasn't educated in the arts, but she just really loved painting and music. And so I grew up listening to her music, Perez Prado, and Cuban music and Italian music and pop music from that era, from the 50s. And so she started all of my 2 sisters and I in dance class from when we were about 7 years old. She just put us in dance class, and I don't know why. It just started, and then some of my cousins also it sort of started a family tradition of dance, and it was because of my mother.
I know Fresno was part of a circuit of touring large theatrical productions, and I would imagine the ballet used to go there as well. Did you ever see the ballet as a
I
kid?
don't remember that. I don't remember like going to see until I moved to LA, going to see ballets or dance companies from other places. But I was in the Fresno Ballet Company for for 2 or 3 seasons. I was in the Nutcracker a couple of years in a row. I did, so I had a very solid ballet background, and also like jazz, tap, hula. I had a very good dance teacher who his name was Jimmy Powell, and he was from Texas, but he had this great sort of teaching ethic, and he was strict, but he was also always had a smile on his face, and he was a really great teacher. And I studied with him one-on-one for 10 years, private acrobatics. So I studied almost like circus contortionism and stuff like that. So that's pretty much my dance background up until the point when I moved to LA. I think at Cal State Fresno, I took some ballet. I was dance major for a little while. I took ballet classes and a little bit of modern, but modern was always a little bit outside of my realm. It was always ballet and more like jazz, what I call lyrical jazz. More sort of, I don't know if you call it Fosse-esque or more lyric, not the kind of jazz you see now, but more lyrical, more.
And about what
flow.
year was this? What year were you in college around?
In the early to mid 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're going to put Carol on simmer. We're going to.
Can I just say something?
Because
figs were a big part of their life and everything. She had to leave because she went to Fig U. No, seriously, and they had this company that was very successful for a few years, but then it became very controversial. They used to make fudge out of their figs, and they started going to fig fudge backers.
Is this true?
This is the John Fleck School of Improv. Right?
Fidge fudge backers.
You're witnessing
fig fudge backers.
You're witnessing the John Fleck School of Improvisational Arts right now.
Well, Carol had a gift for packing figs. Oh, shut up. I'm going to shut up now. Never mind. It's stupid.
Well, speaking of fudge packing...
Yeah. Hello there, Mr. Fudge Packer of 1974.
We come to John Fleck. And tell us where you were born, John.
I was born in Parma, Ohio.
Were you?
Yes.
Parma.
That's a little suburb of Cleveland.
A little suburb of Cleveland.
We moved a lot. I lived there for a couple of years, then we moved somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else. But
Yes,
the house is still standing, actually.
Wow. What was the cause of the moving? Why did you move?
My father built that house in Parma, and then he built another house when I was 4. And then we came to California for a year, and then we moved back to Ohio, and he built another house. And he just
Do you have early memories of California?
I do. Actually, I was 5 years old when we moved out here. Yeah, I loved California because I was so
Where
smart. We were in Yucaipa. Excuse me. My grandparents moved out here, my father's parents, and they had a big, they liked to farm and stuff like that. Farmers.
They were farmers.
Yeah. So my father came out here to start a trailer court in Yucaipa. And, there were like 5 kids by then, we all, drove out and stuff with a big trailer and stuff like that. But he had never checked to see if Yucaipa wanted a trailer court. And they didn't want a trailer court. So, anyways, my 16-year-old sister had an affair with a motorcycle guy, so we drove back to Cleveland like less than a year later. Yeah.
Because she had an affair?
Well, they were worried she was going to join a motorcycle gang or something. So they left California. But I was so smart here. I was in kindergarten. I was the smartest one in the class because California schools weren't as good as Ohio schools at the time, I guess. So I was quite the star pupil for about 9 months.
And so back in Cleveland, what was your education like? I mean, when did you start? Well, tell us about...
My education?
Well, in terms of performance.
Oh, performance. Well, I started performing when I was about 3 years old, I actually have memories when I was like about 4, dancing up in the attic. We lived next to a slaughterhouse at one time. I remember, not right next to it, but it just permeated the smell of the whole neighborhood. I remember it's funny, I don't remember anything, but I remember my sister had these dolls and you could kind of like put them, attach them to your arms and your feet, and you could dance with them. And I remember dancing with those dolls a lot, yeah. And I remember that's when I got into my imagination a lot, because they were fighting a lot, the family, they were always moving and fighting about money and shit. So I would escape up in the attic and fantasize. Uh-huh.
And then formally training, acting training?
I tried to take an acting class in college, but I was too shy.
What college?
Cleveland State University. I went there, I was an economics major, and I tried an acting class, but I was too scared, I couldn't do it. But then, I was the ugly duckling in third grade. I remember I remember the song that I sang. I swim round and around in the merry-go-round. It's funny that one that sticks. And I remember my teacher saying what a handsome young man I was. I think that's kind of where I started. Oh, I'm attracted to a man.
Oh, it was a male teacher.
Yeah, I was so starved for male love, So, and anyways, we had a long affair. And by fourth grade, I had to, no, I'm teasing. We didn't do anything. But, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here.
So you both ultimately moved to Los Angeles. When did you move here, Carol?
I moved here in, I want to say 74. God,
isn't that amazing?
By yourself? You left home?
I did. Well, I had a boyfriend that we both decided to move to LA at the same time. We both left Fresno and moved here at the same time, but we didn't move in together. He was going to UCLA, and I wanted to stay near Hollywood. And so it was never a plan to take up residence together. We wanted to just, we were still together, but I moved into my apartment, and he moved into his place near UCLA.
And why did you want to stay near Hollywood?
That's where all the dance classes were, and I was, hanging out with a lot of dancers and, just trying to figure out LA, which was just so
And what was that
overwhelming.
like? What was it like then? What was the landscape of dance in LA?
Well, I have to say, it really took me about 3 years to kind of acclimate myself. I was very depressed when I moved here. I was really, I didn't feel, even though I stayed with some dancers at one point while I was looking for a place, and I had sort of hung out with, because that was my world, but I never really meshed with them. I always felt a little bit outside of everything. I didn't really feel comfortable in that environment, and I was very lonely. I was really lonely and very depressed, and but I stuck it out, and I'm trying to put the trail together. Mm-hmm. I finally, I did dance, and I did go on a couple of dance tours that took me outside of.
With who?
I was in a circus that went down to South America.
And what did you do in the circus?
I was a dancer. I was part of the dance troupe that opened the show and closed the show, and then we had a big clown number, and some of us, they turned into magician's assistants and girls that kind of took the tiger out around. It was like a real mixed bag. A lot of people from all over the world were in this circus in Venezuela, in Costa Rica for 6 weeks, and then Venezuela for 5 months.
Wow.
So we were down there, and that was my first big dance adventure, because I had come to LA, and I looked at Dramalog, and it said dance audition for South American circus, and I went, and I got in. So I did that.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it. It was my first time out of the United States, first time getting a passport, first time being in a foreign, I was just really, after that, I just became a travel bug. I was like, this is great. I loved it. And I loved the circus. I still keep in touch with a few of the people from that time. We had so many great adventures. And do you remember one? Does one jump out? Oh my God. There's a few. Well, there was this one guy, Bob, who was gay, who he and I, all the other people in the circus were, they were used to being in a circus, and so they slept in tents and they had hammocks, and they were kind of like not sort of westernized at all. And so after about 5 weeks or so, Bob got this idea. He's like, why are they giving us money for the hotel, to pay the hotel? Why don't we just keep that money and we'll buy some hammocks and we'll get a hot plate and we'll just live outside like those guys do? And I said, yeah. And so we did that for like 4 months. We did that we slept in hammocks, and we just kind of hung out, had this, sometimes outside, sometimes inside of a bull ring. We really lived like gypsies for about 4 to 5 months. And there was another episode where one of our South American friends told us about this kind of belladonna plant. And so Bob decided he wanted to try it, and we all, like a bunch of people, wanted to try it. And so we made tea, and we got in a lot of trouble because I probably did the least of it, but I was witness to the chaos that happened afterwards, because people were like hallucinating and crazy for about 24 hours, and we were supposed to do 2 or 3 shows the next day. So there were people that showed up that were in the wrong costume, and I mean, we got in so much trouble that day. I really got like a major talking to from the dance captain. But anyway, that was one of the adventures that sticks out in my mind.
And jumping now back to John, we're going to segue to John. John, when did you arrive in L.A.?
I arrived in L.A. in 1974 as well. I arrived January 1974. I drove from Cleveland, was this fellow that I knew, just a friend, and I came out to go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I had a pseudo girlfriend at the time. She was coming from Lakewood, Ohio, where we lived. I had done my first community theater. I was in the chorus of Sweet Charity, and I'm a brass band, I'm a harps, and I could kick really high. And she said, "Well, I'm going to L.A. to go to acting school," and I'd never taken any acting classes. I was in the chorus, so I came out and I auditioned, and obviously they were desperate to get people. I didn't know what I was doing. And take my money, and I ended up doing that for 2 years. But it's funny that we both came out here in 1974.
Yeah.
When did you two meet? Do you recall when you actually met?
Oh God! Oh yes, I do. I remember at the Academy Bar.
Yes.
Yes.
On Sunset, or
it was on Santa Monica Boulevard. It was that uniform bar. Remember the Academy or whatever? And I was doing
Sunset and Gower.
Was it Sunset and Gower? Okay.
No. Santa Monica and
Gower.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was doing this little 10-minute, it was like a gay variety show. And I remember dragging an alarm clock out and singing, "Time ain't on my side." And she was there. Thank God she's still. But I was dating Dean at the time, very handsome.
And was Dean the one that brought me there?
Yeah, Dean brought you there.
Because Dean said, I want you to see, my friend John is doing this performance, and let's go to this place and watch John. And I said, okay. And so I remember that was the first time that we met.
And it was such a bad show, and God bless Carol, she still stayed friends with me and stuff
it was
like
not
that.
A bad show.
Oh, it was early primal, I don't know, singing stupid songs. Yeah.
And then I think after that show, we went to your house or something. We went to somebody's house after that. That was up near the Hollywood Bowl. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
That wasn't my house.
But anyway.
But then we started performing. We hung out at the Ante Club and Lassa Club, and we started performing. Around 1984 or so, or 83.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that what finally once I got back to LA from the circus, I was actually waitressing at a pizza place when I met this guy Jim Chernick, who we became immediate best friends. And then finally we started to talk about music, and it was the music world, it was the club scene that really cemented my relationship with LA and with all of the friends that were to be my friends for forever after. That was like meeting him was a major turning point in my life. And so, and then soon after I met John.
Right.
And I think you lived in that, the first performance I did with you was you were living in Griffith Park,
right? That
Boulevard.
little place up the hill.
Yeah. And it was it Pagan Holiday?
Pagan Holiday, yes, that was the first show we did at Lassa Club, right?
And what was Pagan Holiday?
And John just said, like, "Hey, I'm doing a show, and you're a dancer, so you want to do it? And I said, yeah. And I said, when is it? He said, tomorrow or something like that.
Like 3 days or whatever.
I used to joke that it was the John Fleck School of like, like.
We got a show tomorrow, kids. Come on.
Like John Fleck School of Performance Art. You rehearse it once and then you throw yourself out on stage, and that was really kind of what it was. Maybe it was 3 days, but I remember going up to your apartment, and we kind of worked it out. And Pagan Holiday was Valentine's.
It was on Valentine's at the Lhasa Club.
Yeah.
Right.
And this was, well,
yes.
I want to know, tell us about the place on Griffith Park Boulevard. Where was it?
Well, you were at
Griffith
the
Park?
place on Griffith Park Boulevard. I moved there in 1978.
This is hardcore silver.
At 1736 and 1/8, it was a little house on the stilts.
Exterior stairs that went up, like, up and up and up.
Yeah. Old Silver Lake, man. And they're still standing there. I don't know. Yeah. But I was paying like $95 a month, back then, back in the day. And,
And you mentioned the Lhasa Club. Now I'm going to toss some little artifacts at you guys, and let's see what.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, Christian Hoffman did that.
Zombie Jamboree. This is the Lhasa Club.
Donald Krieger.
Oh yeah. Oh, Noreen. You remember Noreen?
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Lance Loud, God bless him. He was in. I did a vampire show.
Yeah.
Are you in this, sir?
I don't think I'm in
No,
this.
you're not there, Carol. But I know you. I knew it's part of.
I was probably in the audience.
Probably,
I was probably.
Used to go to these things.
Yeah.
So if you weren't performing, Carol, you would actually be watching.
I'm sure. I was probably there. Yeah. I was probably there.
Yeah, I was there actually. Obviously, that's where
when I did my little vampire thing.
This is Halloween. Oh, I'm sure I was there. I'm sure. Yeah.
And when you say, "Oh, this is Halloween," I'm sure I was there. Why? What does that?
Well, Halloween is my favorite holiday, so it's like a license to get completely crazy and be a different person or a different animal and just do So, and I did a couple of performances at the Lhasa Club, but this was not.
Rocky Schenk presents.
Yeah.
And what were your performances at the Lhasa Club like?
I did something with Josie and her Cortege 9 group there. Yeah.
Where they bring everything but the kitchen sink in terms of they bring
Josie. And I also did one of my first performances was not the first, but I did a version of the Nutcracker called Apocalypse Nut. I called it, after Apocalypse Now, I called it Apocalypse Nut. And Tomato de Plenty was in it. He was the dad, and Stuart Timmons was in it.
That's where Stuart came out and did his famous twirl and landed on his ankle and broke his ankle. I had to take a Hollywood Presbyterian.
And I warned him in rehearsal. I said, "Don't do," because you're supposed to go like this with your feet. I said, "Just do this. Don't try to do whatever that's called, entrechase or whatever." And he was like, and I knew in the performance that he probably just went for it.
Yeah, he was feeling the adrenaline.
And
you can actually hear go, oh God.
And he broke his ankle.
Wow.
And you were in it.
Yes.
And who else was in it?
Oh God.
Bernadette.
Everybody was in it.
And was everybody? I mean, Silver Lake was like where many of you would go home to afterwards. Yes, or where were you living at that point? Would you say in that period?
Well, I was probably living. Let me think. Yeah, that's.
You were living in the doghouse, weren't you? No.
I moved to the doghouse in 1980, so
that's kind of during that time.
It could have been. Yeah. It was probably around then. Yeah, I lived in a couple apartments before that, and then I moved there.
And the doghouse.
Yeah.
So tell us about the doghouse.
Why do they call it the doghouse?
Because when we first moved there were like 13 dogs.
Oh, well, there you have it.
So, one dog had like 10 puppies, and then there were a couple of dogs. So.
Some great parties there, though, huh?
Yeah.
Theoreticals were really a galvanizing point for all of us. I mean, that's kind of, I think, for me, the sense of community was the theoreticals and all the little shows we used to do and stuff like that.
Yep, the theoreticals were
am I jumping the gun? You were going to give us something?
No. Tell us about, that's significant. And the theoreticals were? Where were they when they were such a galvanizing
But the first time I ever did my own work was at a theoretical. Jim Van Tyne at the One Way, what would you call it? A gay
leather bar
scene, a leather bar. Okay, hello there. With great music. I mean, speaking of music, that brought us all together. My God, his music. And Jim threw those theoreticals, and my first one was in 1983. I had just gone back from Florida, and he asked me to do something, and I opened for Edie Massey, the egg lady from Pink Flamingos. And I remember, and at that time, people had tattoos and piercings. I mean, that was, like revolutionary at the time. And, it's kind of a scary place to do your first performance. So I climbed on top of a bar, I think, and I pulled my pants down. That's where I sang, there's no penis like show penis. And then I sang an aria. That's the first time I ever used my really high voice. And
really?
Yeah. I sang, I think, a Puccini aria. And everybody liked it. So I go, wow.
Had you studied singing?
I studied singing for a long time, like you. I studied dance and singing and, even mime. God.
And Edie Massey was there.
Yeah.
She was kind of a superstar.
She was a superstar, yeah.
And she was
the egg lady from Pink Flamingos. That's what she's most famous for.
Yeah.
Huh?
And she was being imported somehow. She was obviously in Los Angeles at that point. I think she was living in Venice.
Venice. Yeah, Jim was kind of turning her into a little band. Jim
Van Tyne had this sort of attraction to these cult figures, like Vampira, and he had this certain, and Edie, and he had this certain kind of he was a magnet for these kind of people, and he just
Jim Van Tyne was.
Jim Van Tyne was actually one of when I moved to Silver Lake, when I moved from my last apartment into the doghouse, around the corner from the One Way.
On what street, tell us?
On Commonwealth. Yeah,
right,
and the One Way is on Hoover Street. One block over.
Distance,
And Jim Van Tyne was the only person I knew who also lived in that neighborhood, in Silver Lake, in general. Like you did, but I probably didn't.
I was further away. He was on Lucille, wasn't he?
He was on Lucille, and he was a DJ. He had an ear to the ground with music from the UK
and Germany. Yeah.
He if you went to the One Way to hear music that you did not hear anywhere else. You did not hear anywhere else. I mean, maybe KXLU. I don't even know if that was happening at the time, but it was like you heard music at the One Way that you went there. You either went there for the leather, the gay sex boy club, or you went there for the music.
And it all kind of tied in. It's just a perfect ambience.
And it was pitch black, like you would walk in there, and I remember the first time I went there, because Jim Chernick, the guy that my friend that, we started basically going to clubs and stuff together, he would go there. He became friends with Jim Van Tyne and Richard Escarcega. And so the three of them all DJ'd at the One Way. And Jim Chernick kept telling me, you have to come. And I was like, it's a gay bar. I don't know. I mean, not that it's just a leather bar, So I was like, okay. So it was New Year's Eve, and I was working at the Formosa Cafe, and I promised him that we would go out after I got off work. So we made a date to go out after work. So I got off work, I went home, and I changed, and walked over to the One Way. And I was supposed to just meet them and then go somewhere else for New Year's, Well, I ended up staying there because the music was so great.
Yeah.
And then I started just going there all the time. And I remember one time, because back then, if you were a woman going into a gay bar, especially a leather bar, sometimes the guys made it a little hard, on the women. They wanted 3 IDs, and they wanted you to have closed-toed shoes, and they just kind of made up stuff to sort of make it harder for you to get in. So this one time, and I remember the owner, his name was Michael Mott, and he knew me from, I was kind of going in and out of there now, but one time I went there and the doorman didn't know me, and he was giving me trouble, and Mike Mott came up and he just put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "You let her in." And then he looked at me and he said, "You want a beer?" And he just took me over
All
to the
right,
bar,
Michael.
and that was the last time I ever had a problem getting into the one. But it was.
And the theoreticals, now that was in the evening. Though this was when it was functioning as a bar in the evening, but the theoreticals didn't happen in the evening.
They were usually on the weekends. It started in the afternoon.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Afternoon, yeah.
And it would be a lot of women and men. It was
Yeah.
very mixed. I mean,
Yep,
it was
yep.
groovy happening.
Yeah.
Right. We have, here is a picture. Again, we want to take a look at that and see.
Yeah.
Where's you, Kurt? Where are you? Is that you, Kyle?
Yeah,
You look
with
like a
white pants.
child. Oh my Lord! Never wear white after something.
And
Yeah.
there's, who else is in there? There's
Kyle Brackett and Jim Yausling.
who was the editor of In Touch.
Oh, this is In
magazine.
Touch
right,
magazine.
right,
This is
right,
it?
right. That's probably
And what year was this at the Theoreticals? MDK. What does that mean? MDK concert.
MDK. Well, that was a
No.
MDK concert. It must be a
band.
a
or
band.
something.
It sounds yeah. This it doesn't have a date.
No, it's about 83.
Oh, okay, 83. So wow, yeah,
And what is this?
yeah.
Outside
Oh,
the
this is
window?
outside the one way.
Oh, and there's Robbie. God, who is
That's
this
Mark
dude?
Whitten.
Mark Whitten.
No, is it? I don't know if that's Mark or not.
Okay.
It looks like him.
Is that? It looks like him, but I don't know if it's
Right.
him. Yeah, Robbie for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was right outside.
And lots of women in that picture.
Yeah,
Yes,
Theoreticals,
yes.
man.
There were a lot of the Theoreticals attracted everyone because it was really, and not only bands but also like very odd musical acts and poets. Lotus Lame and the Lame Flames. Remember they were
Right.
kind of like a punk burlesque
Glenn
group.
Meadmore.
Glenn Meadmore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really
You know,
a mixed bag.
You know, it's funny, you say you always felt outside, you know, when you were doing those dance classes, you never felt apart. This is, for me, I always felt outside the acting establishment or whatever, and this is where I really felt for the first time that I belonged, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot of us, the outsiders, who kind of felt, oh boy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
We found a home here.
And
Yeah.
did you ever perform there, Carol?
At the one way?
At Theoreticals.
Theoreticals?
You? I could have sworn. you
I
did.
must have, but you know, I do remember my first performance, and that was not at the one way. It was not at a theoretical. It was at Helen's, but it was at
The Anti-Club.
the Anti-Club.
The Anti-Club, ah, yes.
And so the one way kind of spilled over into another venture by Jim Van Tyne and Jack Marquette and Russell Jessam, and they were DJs, and they kind of took over the whole thing, you know, from Helen, who was the proprietress, and so Jim Van Tyne came up to me one day and said, you know, you ought to perform, and I had never really. I had taken a break from dance. I had taken about a 2 or 3 year break because I had gone out on a couple of 3 tours actually, and I was really searching for, I didn't, you know, the stuff that I was doing was very sort of Vegas kind of, you know, it was very, you know, entertainment and sparkly and you know, it wasn't very deep at all. And so I was looking for something a little bit more than that. And so I started to study photography and filmmaking, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And then I remember at one point I saw I don't know if it was on, I don't even remember what it was, but I saw a woman doing a short dance piece, and I realized, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I realized that dance had this whole other spectrum of life that I had not even scratched the surface of. And so that's when I realized I had to get back into it. And Jim was the one that handed me this invitation. So I did perform, my very first performance art piece was there at the Anti-Club.
And what was that like?
It was it was like, well, I used some music from 17 Pygmies, where my girlfriend Debbie Spinelli was a drummer, and she also did a little bit of vocals for that band. I'm pretty
She
sure.
wasn't your girlfriend at the time, right?
She wasn't my girlfriend. Well, I was just starting to get to know her, but this piece of music just really inspired me, and so I did this piece where I had like I made a tube out of like this muslin, this fabric, and I was inside of it, and I had a light, and so I made these shadows, and then I kind of kind of started splashing it with this blood-like stuff, and then I came out and did a dance piece, and it was in 3 parts. I remember.
Wow.
I don't really remember what the other 2 parts were about, but it was it's probably 10 or 12 minutes long.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Here's something a few years later. But
Yeah. Yeah, this is from a piece
Perpetua.
that I did at Beyond Baroque.
It's a beautiful picture.
Thanks. Yeah, that was.
Works this way too.
It's like a swastika.
I know. It is like a swastika. Oh,
Yeah, that was a piece that I did with a couple of people at Beyond Baroque. That was another kind of. I remember I had a television set that I used to crawl out of, like a big sort of wooden television set and I had people sort of crawling out of it.
It was so creative back then.
Yeah, honey.
so you were actually starting to move way beyond Silver Lake, as it were. I mean, that's out in Venice.
Yeah. Take it wherever it comes, right?
Take it on the road. We're going to Venice, honey.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Let's see. Now this is both of you.
Oh.
Well, Carol's the photographer. Those
Right.
are my feet.
Yes, I know.
And you said there was a story about that one.
Well, it's not really. Well, it's just the day that. Do you remember where you got this dress?
I got this dress at a thrift store when we were out doing the little rafting
the
thing.
river rafting.
And we went to thrift stores outside of Fresno, or in
Right,
Fresno, or
right.
whatever. Yeah.
In not Tulare. Anyway.
And I found this big, woman's
I
dress.
think you were looking for a dress for a performance, weren't you?
Maybe, and I found this. It was perfect.
And it was big. It was like it fit him.
Uh-huh.
And so, I think he bought I told him he had to buy it.
Yeah.
And then.
$2.
And then the next day or so.
We came back from the river rafting. We were sitting out on the patio.
Yeah, we were swimming out here,
Oh.
and Eric Handel was with us, and you decided to model your new dress.
Right.
And you were walking around, and so I just took pictures of John. I've got probably, I don't know, like 30 or 40 pictures of him tippy-toeing around, doing a little ballet around the pool. And then, and you want to hear the rest of the story. At some point, I'll produce the other pictures I took, but he was doing some pornographic poses with,
One man's porno is another man's.
I know. Well, it's John Fleck. He can't help himself. He's an
exhibitionist. I
he
guess.
is an exhibitionist.
Which brings us to the
God.
pictures
Yeah, John.
that are framing this
Asinine.
interview.
We're calling this
pictures.
asinine.
These are
9 prints
John.
of my ass. Yeah. I did these out in the desert. Remember when we lived out in the desert for a bit? And there were a lot of throwaways. Let me tell you, it ain't easy to get like these. So But anyways, I had my first art show, and nobody bought them, so I still have the full collection if anybody wants to buy one.
I'll buy one.
Well,
Yeah.
but I like asinine. 9 prints of my ass, asinine.
Oh.
It's very clever. I like.
But that was the same. You did that performance.
I did a performance there. Yeah.
That was a
Now
great
you two
performance.
have collaborated on lots of work. For instance, here is one. A Snowball's Chance in Hell. Now, Carol, you're thanked on the back of that one. Do you remember what you did?
I thanked her for not being in it. I thanked her for, what did I thank you?
I
You
don't
must have helped me
remember.
maybe record some music or something. Who knows? Thanks for the inspiration. Thank you for.
I remember the performance. I
Right.
don't know. Maybe it was recording music. I had a 4-track recorder, and I used to do stuff like that.
This was my first show after the NEA thing happened. It was my
right.
response to the NEA thing.
We'll
As we speak
talk
to-
about that in a
okay,
moment.
okay.
And what was your response to the NEA?
A Snowball's Chance in Hell. The poor schmuck that believes everything he reads and sees, and he can't separate. He doesn't know what's real and what isn't real anymore. Sounds like a little bit like today.
when you say you couldn't separate what was real, what was real and what was unreal about that time?
Well, I was making a comment on consumer. I was responding to the NEA about all these labels that were put on me and how people believe these things that weren't true. Like I masturbate on people or I pee in an audience, but people believe what they read. So I just took it to the nth degree about this guy, because we used to read newspapers back then, and it was pre-computer, and so he just he gets into the whole consumer identification thing, and he's kind of fucked. Yeah.
And where was this performance?
Well, I did it at Taper 2, and then I did it at the Coast Playhouse on Santa Monica Boulevard. I did it at Sushi in San Diego too, and I did it up in San Francisco.
And you say people were believing that you were masturbating on stage?
Well, because the press that was coming out after the whole NEA thing,
And what was that press? What were they saying?
Well, just, that we should have been defunded from the National Endowment because we were obscene. And, to prove their point, he pees on a picture of Jesus Christ. And
Right.
Wait a minute, I never peed on Jesus Christ. Or, he masturbates on stage. I never masturbated on stage. I made it look like I was, having wild sex, but I never masturbated. It was simulated. And then, or that I like to piss, on my audience. I never pissed on an audience. When I did it first, oh God, here I go. When I did it at Olio, the first time I did Bless Our Little Fishes,
Yeah.
the theme was Fish Night. Carol was there, I think.
I was
and that's, and I came out dressed as a mermaid and, praying to God, please give me a miracle. Anyways, I ended up peeing into a toilet bowl and there's a little fish and stuff. But it's funny, Harvey, well, I guess I can say George DiCaprio was in the audience, and he told Harvey Pekar, the cartoonist, about this. Actually, I'll give you a copy. Have you ever seen the cartoon?
I have.
Well, tell the whole story about the guy in the audience.
Oh, God.
So-
This story is very convoluted. It goes on and on and on. Anyway, so Harvey Pekar did this thing about me peeing into a glass and trying to get men to drink it in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Or no, I drank it. No, I drank my own piss, and I asked men in the audience to kiss me. And everybody ran out of the theater screaming, "Don't kiss the mermaid! Don't kiss the mermaid!" Totally, it did happen. So this was my context for creating Snowball Chance in Hell.
And that was in Silver Lake.
That was in Silver Lake.
Run by Julian. Remember Julian?
Julian, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways.
So the real story, what really happened.
So anyway, so I pee in the audience. I'm not in the audience. God. Pee in this toilet bowl, and I pray for a miracle. And a little goldfish appears, and oh God, and then a loaf of bread appears, and I start, oh God, I love this fish so much, and it looks like I'm.
So it's like this fish. He's trying to
I'm smothering it with
he's
love.
He's lonely, and so this fish appears, and he's like smothering it with love because he's so happy to have this companion that he's smothering it with bread.
Yeah, and I'm stuffing bread into this thing, and the audience is going, "Save the fish! Save the fish!" They're stamping their feet, and finally this guy runs up out of the audience, and you motherfucker, you sick, and he takes the bread out, throws it, and he saves the goldfish. He actually leaves, and I thought,
he was really upset.
He was really mad. I thought he was going to hit me.
Yeah.
And this was part of an evening.
Yes,
Fish Night, that Theater Carnival we're doing.
Yeah,
what else happened that? Do you recall anything else? I mean, that was like an event in Silver Lake. It was a performance in Silver Lake.
Yeah, that was.
Well, what I think is great about John's performances is that he takes things like that, incidents like that, because I think the rest of the time you did that show, you did it several other times.
Well, I got Mark to play the part when I did it at the Tiffany Theater.
And you built in the guy. You had somebody recreate that scene. And, so you really make the most of, awkward and adverse situations.
Well, I thought, what if, some people do get riled up. And I did, when he saves the fish, I go, oh, yeah, isn't he a good man saving that fish? Well, what about the 2 ton of fish that die each year from them pumping your shit out into Santa Monica Bay? Oh, yeah, hypocrite, that kind of thing. So I turned it around on it.
But were there other performers on the bill that night?
I think Johanna Wendt was on the bill.
I don't remember. All I remember is
that
was Theater Carnival.
Theater Carnival, yes, Fish Night. Yeah, that was the theme. I love good themes.
Was it Under the Sea night? Was that?
I don't know. I remember.
So there really was Joanna Wendt. You both probably at various points.
She was a pivotal character during that time for all of us. Very inspirational, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also part of the theoreticals.
Yes.
Right,
absolutely.
right.
Yeah, she was great. Yeah, she was.
She was a
really,
rock and roll band in one body.
She was so amazing. She's still amazing.
Yeah.
She's still. She's. she's got such a fertile mind, and she's so great politically, like got very savvy also, in very subtle ways, but she's, it seems really abstract, but when you think about it, she's really, really powerful. But I wanted to tell the other story about your great improv skills. We took a little group called the La Brea Circus after the circus, the La Brea Circus 99-cent store on La Brea, and we named our little group, and it was you did something, and I did a dance piece, and Jim Chernick was doing DJ, and David Hughes and Robert Berg were doing some music, and so we decided we did it once here, and then we like sort of connected with some San Francisco people, and we booked 2 shows in San Francisco. So we went on the road, and we went up to San Francisco, and we had 2 nights there in 2 different places. And one of these places was this long, skinny bar, I don't know, club, and it was the stage in the very back had this shag carpeting, like loop carpet all over the stage and all over the steps. And so we did our performance, and it was like really long space. You couldn't even tell if people were really there or if they really liked you or anything. You couldn't even see out there. And so we got off stage, and I had this costume with my favorite boots, which I had worn the heels down to the point where the little nails were sticking out of the boots. And so we get off stage at the end of the show, and suddenly the audience just bursts into they're like crazy. They loved us, and we're like, what do we do?
We're surprised.
What do we do? What do we do?
do?
So I said, do we go out? John's like, I don't know, and David goes, I don't know. And so I was the closest to the stage, so I just went, okay, I'm going to do a little bow, and my nail in my heel stuck on the shag carpet, and I fell flat on my face on the stage. And John is right behind me, and he sees what's happening, and so he just steps right over me, and he does a little somersault right over my back, and he lands like on top of me, and then the next person, so everybody in the show ends up in a heap on top of the stage, and the audience went wild. And that's just because of him, because
well, it's just because of you.
I would have just dusted myself off and gotten all red and embarrassed and said, oh. But anyway, he turned it into this like successful.
Turn lemons into lemonade, honey.
Can we go back to how are we doing for time? Good, we've got some time. Could we go back to the doghouse? I'd love to hear more about that as just a little vortex of artists in Silver Lake and people.
Yeah, a lot of artists lived there. I moved there in 1980 as a renter. A friend of mine, we decided we wanted to live in a real house, not an apartment with a yard. So we found this place, and it was just in terrible shape, and we got like 2 months free rent for painting the place ourselves or something. And so we moved. It was like the front house and the back house, and there was a little attic apartment that it wasn't really even an apartment. It was just a dusty storage unit. And then anyway, it was had a few little nooks where people could live. And 4 years later, the owners, long story short, they basically sold it, and the new owner defaulted, and so I was able to buy it in 1984. And so over the years, a lot of people lived there. We've had a lot of major. Jim Van Tyne and I had a lot of joint blender parties. We would say the goddess Lady Kenmore, and we would have these big blender parties. I mean, at one point, the backyard was so packed with people that I was standing on the roof, and you couldn't even see where there was a place to stand. And Frank was performing that night. Folk singer Frank was performing that night. And people like Ron Athey and Edward Stapleton from Nervous Gender lived there. Claire Glidden lived there. Tomato lived there for a short time. His friend Paul Adrian and John Tagliavia from Red Wedding lived there.
Dean
was one of my first roommate there. Yeah, he made a little movie in the living room, and I was dressed up kind of like Susie in the Banshee, kind of like makeup and stuff, and he was playing with stop action and
Wow.
yeah, and you know, I was studying photography at the time too, so it was anyway. It was a real nice mix, you know, and it was, and that's just to mention a few. I mean, like so many people have gone in and out of there.
And the whole AIDS thing, you know,
yeah.
you were living there during the whole epidemic.
Yeah.
You know, God, so many
Yeah.
people died during that time as
Yeah.
well. Huh?
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah, yeah, including Jim Chernick,
Jim Chernick,
who also lived
Jim
there with
Bentine.
Jim. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyways, the list goes on.
yeah. It was kind of right when that all was happening.
But we survived the plague.
We did. It was not easy. It was
Yeah.
not easy. It was a really tough time. It was a really sad time. You know, you just didn't know who was going to go next. It was really, really horrible. Horrific. Yeah.
But you both certainly did stuff. You didn't just take it lying down, as it were. You
Right.
Well, you know, it was during the whole Reagan time, and you know, and there was no,
Jesse Helms.
He never mentioned the AIDS word, so it's
Right,
up to artists
right,
to like,
right.
hello. I kind of feel it's so relevant today to go, hello, you know, act up, speak up.
Yeah. And ACT UP was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
happening then. And
Yeah.
just quickly seguing from there back to the NEA4, and I have this here,
Oh my.
and
Oh my.
Oh.
The Theater Week censored.
censored.
Oh look, you got
How
all
we
our
use-
autographs as well. Wow, you don't have Karen Finley's autograph. She charges for her. But yeah, that was from I Got the Heebie-Sheebies, that picture. That was the first big piece I ever did.
and again, talk about the NEA. What ultimately happened, and what was the upshot?
Well, National Endowment for the Arts used to give, grants, small grants to a new genre. That was one of the categories under their funding. So Jan Monroe, God bless his soul, he says, "Oh, you should apply for NEA." This was in 1989. So I applied, and they came to see my show, Bless Our Little Fishes, that I did at the Tiffany Theater with you, standing as the outraged man, saving the fish. And they loved it, and they recommended I get a grant. And then, Jesse Helms came along, when was that, 1989 as well, or 1990.
Yeah.
And I received the grant, as well as the three other ones, performance artists. And because of the political pressure and the, religious and sexual, critique we were making in our pieces, they decided to cut funding after the grants had already been given from the National Endowment. So that's where the kind of the brouhaha.
So you lost the money.
We our grants were rescinded, but then ACLU and Center for Constitutional Rights, the lawyers stepped in and represented us, and we took the case to the Supreme Court.
The United States Supreme Court.
I know. It actually went to the Supreme Court. So God, I should remember all the history here. But they actually wait. Did it end up at the Supreme Court? I know one point. Part of the journey is someone said that you can't apply standards of decency. It came back in our favor originally that you cannot apply standards of decency to art. Where do you draw the line? What's obscene? What's art?
Right.
And we actually won, but then Bill Clinton, who was in office at that time, appealed our decision. It was like his bone, red meat to the conservatives, saying that you could. They did not approve of
Really?
So that's when we went to the Supreme Court.
Oh.
Yeah. And we won our grant money back. We got, I ended up getting, we each got $11,000. The lawyers got like $300,000. But that's the way it goes. But
It's the principle.
It's the principle. Well, my grant was originally $5,000, so hey, I doubled my money.
But it went up to the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah. And what was the upshot? We got our funding, but they did uphold standards of decency. And they eliminated our category from the funding. So new genre. So a lot of people blame us for. But if it wouldn't have been us, it would have been someone else.
Yeah.
So there's the story.
It was like a witch hunt.
It was.
They were just whipping up it was like the McCarthy era all over again.
And it's kind of sad today because, Washington Post says NEA is going to be the first thing Donald Trump signs out, that they're cutting the NEA, just to save, no money, which is Germany spends 40 times more on arts funding than we do, even keeping the NEA. And look at anyways, it's sad.
We should say we're doing this interview the day before
the inauguration.
The day before
Trump.
Of Drumpf. I don't even call him Drumpf.
T-Rump.
The orange one.
The orange one.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
We're venturing on a whole new landscape.
Yeah,
We're going out.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to turn it into art. Turn some lemons into lemonade. Hopefully. Yeah.
I mean, you know, what else can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Dig a hole and lay in it. I mean, what else can you do?
That's what I've been doing since the election. I think really.
I think a lot of people have been.
But.
Yeah.
And Carol, you are you're an activist in preservation in the city of Los Angeles. Now, are you doing any more performance?
Not right now. I want to get back. Maybe I'll take John's workshop. I have always ideas and I have inspiration. Like I'll hear a piece of music or I'll have a dream or something. I'll go, I gotta write that down. So I have lots of things that I want to do, but right now I'm kind of just splintered in this other direction, and I just don't have any time. There's so much going on with overdevelopment, and that's a whole other life. But I do miss it, and I do need it. I feel like John. I feel like I have to get back into it because it's part of who I am, and it's important. It's important for me, and I feel like it's important to have a voice, like a reflection of what's going on, and have sort of, especially collaborating with other people and getting people out of this funk that they're in right now, where people feel very cornered right now.
Do you sense that there's, both of you, that there's still some kind of community here in Silver Lake, as there was, that time ago that we've been revisiting?
Well, our community has dissipated a little bit, from the glory days of the 80s or whatever, early 90s. There's certainly, look at, you went to see Ian McKinnon's Adonis Project. There's a vibrant queer performance community here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what
in Silver Lake, Ian McKinnon has a show every third Monday.
Where's that?
In Silver Lake at Akbar.
At Akbar?
The last one wasn't at Akbar. You said it was somewhere else. Right?
I'd seen that name. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that's nice to know.
Yeah. I feel like yes and no. I feel like there's still a lot of some of the same people. People grow up and have families and move away and get careers and that take them away from the arts. So a lot of that has happened. I think I'm still in touch with a lot of people that have a very sort of artistic core that just will always be there. They will always, like Deborah Oliver, she's always going to be producing some kind of art. There is a certain core group of people, and then I think that there are some younger people coming up that are are doing some interesting, mostly, I don't know. I see some like musical things. I really haven't seen a lot of impressive performance art. Maybe I'm just not going out and finding it, because I think you do need to sort of find it.
Right.
Sometimes I always like to say, I've paid $50 for a ticket somewhere to Royce Hall or something and been very disappointed, and then I go for free to some like gritty art opening and see a performance that blows me away. It has no there's no way that you can predict where you're going to see great performances. But I guess I just, like I say, I've been very splintered in this other direction, so maybe I'm just not finding it. But I feel like it's out there. I think Silver Lake has been infused with a lot of sort of a newer layer of people that are younger, and I have to say kind of superficial. Maybe I'm just not finding the right people. I do know, like today, there's a woman that at the hearing for this cultural historic monument, who I just met by accident because I happened to go to the property that was threatened by demolition, and she already took up she already went downtown, did all the research, and kind of took it upon herself to do this thing that she had never done before, and she did a fantastic job. So I know that there are people out there that are, smart and creative, but maybe I'm just not venturing out into that world right now. No.
And are there places either of you go to, for instance, in Silver Lake or around to see? Where would you go to see performance?
Well, I just went to El Cid recently. They a variety show. I mean, there's a lot of variety shows. So I don't see a lot of just single stuff. But April Hava Shankman did something in it, and I forgot who put it together. But
Casita del Campo has
Casita
stuff.
del Campo, and I don't go there a lot, but every now and then.
I don't go there a lot.
The Cave down the Casita del
Yeah.
Campo.
Yeah. The Red Cat's good for certain things.
Right.
It's got some really good sort of.
I mean, I used to go to highways a lot more, but I'll tell you, man, the traffic is so friggin' bad. I mean, if I don't have to go to Santa Monica across town on a Friday or Saturday, I feel like that's another hour added, 2 hours added to my life,
But many of the Silver Lake performers used to actually, once upon a time, go out to highways.
Oh, I mean, I don't mean to say I never go out to highways,
Right.
but yeah, that's
Right.
where a lot of us were always
Right.
doing
Oh,
our
yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you perform there as well, Karen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done some performance there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they asked me to perform there again, I might do it, but they don't really ask anymore, so I don't know whether they're inquiring. So.
Yeah. I think that, Silver Lake has changed. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years,
Right.
at least.
Gentrification, yeah.
And so there's been a lot more emphasis, I think, on consumerism. Getting that $10
And
juice
rents are so
that
fucking expensive.
Yeah.
You can't have these little hole in the walls like
Yeah.
Olio
Yeah.
on Sunset
So it's-
Boulevard anymore. I mean,
It's much harder to find places where you can work as an artist, where
Right.
you can actually put on a show and invite your friends and have find those venues where it's not a lot of red tape and back then it used to be really easy. I mean you were doing things every week.
I was just thought of another place. Coagula can be fun down in Chinatown. Every now and then they
that's
have kind
great.
of happenings, and
That's actually
so that's one of the cool things. Yeah.
every year they have their performance art festival at Chinatown, and that's really
That's
nice.
an event.
That's
yeah,
really
you
nice.
feel like that's pretty...
And
Mm-hmm.
Akbar has great stuff too. Like certain things like Selena, like the comedy stuff.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of really different kinds of shows there too. So it's kind of happening in different types of places.
And John Sinner just did a big show downtown in some warehouse. I forget what the name of it was, but it got great reviews in the Times. But that was a special event down in the, you felt like the rawness, even though it's in downtown that is all gentrified now. But it's one of the, I think they're turning that into a restaurant. So that was one of the last shows that'll ever be in that place. So.
It's very interesting though, like the whole art renaissance downtown. The artist district is now really like, it's not like you can have. I had a $300 studio downtown when in the '80s, and it doesn't that. I think the building's gone now, but.
Jack Marquette used to have great parties in his loft down there.
Yeah.
And where was that?
Where was that? That was by
Alameda.
Alameda,
And
right?
7th or 8th. It was down
like
by
that.
the old Lace, kind of.
Yeah.
There's a gas station on Alameda and 7th, and it was right around the corner from there. So yeah, I mean that, it's different. I mean, I don't want to be pessimistic about it. I want to think that there is the new life and new performance and new artists that are coming through the ranks that really see what's going on and can, inspire other people and work. I like the idea of collaboration and working together. And
we've been threatening for years to create like a theater dance piece out here by the pool area here.
I know.
Now it's on tape, I guess.
I know, you just said it. You just said it.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
And thank you, both of you. This was just a delight and such a wonderful trip through an important part of
thank
history
you,
that
Mark.
isn't recorded as
I
much.
know, and I learned a lot about
There's
God.
more. There's more too. We didn't talk nearly enough about tomato,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah,
Right.
So many people.
people we
Right.
could mention and
Yeah, I was just thinking of
Performances.
Tomato, because I used to be in a lot of his pieces, and were we all in some of his pieces?
Oh, yeah.
Tomato, yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
But not a show. Okay, guys.
Well, thank
you
you.
so much.
That was nice.
Yeah.